Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History, Treasure Seekers and Coin Lovers. If you've ever held on to your spare change thinking, maybe this could be worth something someday, well, today might just be your lucky day. In this video, we're diving deep into one of the most intriguing coins in American numismatic history, the 1965 Washington quarter dollar with a mint mark. Yes, you heard that right, 1965. A year most people wouldn't think twice about when it comes to quarters. But there's a surprising twist in this story, and by the end of the video, you'll understand why a small, seemingly ordinary coin could turn out to be a hidden jackpot. So grab your coin jars, and let's go hunting. Let's rewind the clock to the mid-1960s, a time of massive cultural change in the United States. The civil rights movement was in full force, the Vietnam War was escalating, and the Beatles were topping the charts. Amidst all that chaos and excitement, something seemingly small but historically significant was happening to America's coinage. In 1965, the U.S. Mint made a major change to its coins. It stopped using silver in quarters. Prior to that year, quarters were made of 90% silver, giving them real intrinsic value. But due to rising silver prices and increased demand, the government had to act fast to preserve the nation's coin supply. So they switched the composition of quarters from silver to a copper-nickel-clad material. That change officially started with the 1965 issue. Here's where things get interesting. When the mint transitioned to the new coinage, it also made a decision to eliminate mint marks temporarily. Why? To prevent collectors from hoarding coins from specific mints, especially during a time of silver shortage and public panic. So officially, no quarters from 1965 should have a mint mark. They were all supposed to be completely blank below Washington's neck on the obverse side, but not everything went according to plan. Over time, a few extremely rare 1965 Washington quarters have surfaced with what appears to be a mint mark. This is a numismatic mystery that has collectors buzzing even decades later. Some believe these coins were struck using older dies that still had mint marks engraved on them. Others suggest they may have been transitional errors, coins that were unintentionally struck on leftover 1964 silver planchets with pre-marked dies. Now, you might be wondering, why is a tiny mint mark such a big deal? Well, in the world of coin collecting, rarity is king. A mint mark that shouldn't exist makes a coin incredibly rare. Add to that the fact that 1965 was the first year of non-silver quarters, and you've got a perfect storm for collectors. A rare error in a year of massive transition. Coins like these, especially if they are in uncirculated or near pristine condition, are extremely hard to come by. Most people use their quarters in vending machines, parking meters, or just let them rattle around in their pockets. So finding a 1965 Washington quarter with a mint mark, and in excellent condition? That's like finding a needle in a haystack. But wait, there's more. Some 1965 quarters have also been found struck on silver planchets, meaning they were accidentally made using the older, 90% silver blanks instead of the new copper-nickel ones. These transitional error coins are another reason 1965 quarters have become a hot topic in the collector community. If your quarter is slightly heavier than usual and has a slightly different ring when dropped, it just might be one of those rare silver planchets. And here's a pro tip for all you budding collectors: use a magnifying glass and good lighting. Check for fine details around the edge, and especially below Washington's neck. Look for any letters. A tiny D or S mint mark might be hiding in plain sight. That tiny detail could change everything. Alright, we've talked about history, we've talked about mint marks, we've talked about errors and rarity. Now let's get to the part everyone's been waiting for. How much is one of these rare 1965 Washington quarters really worth? Are you sitting down? Because if you happen to own a 1965 quarter with a visible mint mark, especially in uncirculated or high-grade condition, or one that was struck on a leftover silver planchet, its value could be astonishing. Some of these coins have been known to fetch up to $45,000 in private auctions and collector circles. Yes, you heard that right. $45,000 for a single quarter that could be hiding in your old change jar, your grandma's coin purse, or a flea market bin. Incredible, isn't it? So here's your mission. After this video, go dig through your coins. Look closely at every 1965 quarter you find. It might look ordinary, but with the right mint mark or error, it could be a life-changing discovery. Today's video is made just for you, because what if I told you that a simple quarter, yes, a 25-cent piece from 1966, could actually be worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars? That's right. The Washington quarter dollar from 1966 might look ordinary to the untrained eye, but for those who know what to look for, it could be a golden opportunity. Stay with me until the very end, because you won't believe how much one of these rare quarters has been valued at. Let's dive in. The year was 1966. America was in the middle of one of the most turbulent decades in its history. The Vietnam War was raging. Civil rights marches filled the streets. The Beatles were taking over the radio. And in the background, quietly and without much fanfare, something big was happening with U.S. coinage. The United States Mint was still adjusting to a major change that had happened just 1 year earlier, the complete removal of silver from dimes and quarters. That's right, before 1965, Washington quarters were made of 90% silver. But due to skyrocketing silver prices and a growing coin shortage, the mint made the decision to switch to a copper-nickel-clad composition starting in 1965. The goal was to keep coins in circulation and discourage people from hoarding them, but as with many major transitions, a few unusual things happened. One of the key things to know about the 1966 Washington quarter is this: it officially should not have a mint mark. In both 1965 and 1966, the U.S. Mint removed mint marks from coins completely. The idea was to avoid public panic or hoarding behavior based on coins coming from specific mints like Denver or San Francisco. So, any quarter minted in 1966, whether it came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, should have absolutely no mint mark. So why are collectors going crazy looking for a 1966 quarter with a mint mark? Because a few of them do exist, whether it was a die that slipped through the cracks, an experimental strike, or a transitional error. Some rare 1966 quarters have been discovered with visible mint marks, usually a tiny D for Denver or S for San Francisco. These were not supposed to exist. But somehow, a few made it into circulation. That's what makes them so incredibly valuable. Collectors love error coins. They're one of a kind. They carry stories, mystery, and rarity, and those three things are what drive up their value. A 1966 quarter with a mint mark is more than a coin. It's a mistake that slipped through the strict quality controls of the U.S. Mint during a major period of change. And that makes it gold in the eyes of a numismatist. But wait, there's more. Another major rarity from 1966 is the elusive silver-clad error. During the transition from silver to clad materials, a few blank silver planchets from 1964 and 1965 were accidentally fed into the machines and struck with 1966 dies. These coins look similar to regular quarters, but they have a slightly different tone, a distinct ring when dropped, and they weigh more than the standard 5.67 grams of the copper-nickel quarters. If you suspect you have one, a simple scale and a magnet can help. Silver is non-magnetic and heavier. And if the coin passes those tests, the next step is to get it professionally graded, because that little difference could be worth a fortune. And here's another secret: some 1966 quarters feature double die errors, where the lettering or imagery is slightly doubled due to a die alignment issue. These are incredibly subtle, but once you know what to look for, especially around the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," it becomes a thrilling game of coin detective work. Now imagine this: you're flipping through your pocket change, and suddenly you notice something strange about a quarter. You pull out a magnifying glass and realize, there's a mint mark. Or maybe the weight is off. Maybe the coin just looks different. You could be holding a rare coin that almost nobody else has, and that brings us to the big question: how much is a 1966 Washington quarter with a mint mark, or a silver planchet error, actually worth? Well, here's the truth. Most 1966 quarters are worth face value. But the rare ones, the ones with true minting anomalies or error characteristics, they are in a completely different league. Some of these ultra-rare 1966 Washington quarters, especially those with verified mint marks or silver content, have been known to sell for as much as $55,000. Yes, $55,000 for a single coin that started out as just 25 cents. Isn't that wild? So, the next time you come across a handful of change, don't be too quick to spend it. Examine every coin. Pay attention to the details. That plain-looking quarter might just be a life-changing discovery. Today, we're diving into a coin that might just make you think twice before you ever spend another 25 cents again. The Washington quarter dollar from 1967 might seem like just another common coin, but the truth is, buried in this unassuming year lies one of the rarest and most mysterious minting secrets in American numismatics. And if you're lucky enough to spot the clues, your next quarter might be worth a whole lot more than you ever imagined. Let's travel back to the 1960s, a decade that changed everything. The world was shifting. Technology was booming. Civil rights movements were shaking the system. And behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was facing a major crisis. Silver prices were climbing rapidly, and Americans had caught on. People began hoarding silver coins, dimes, quarters, half-dollars, anything with real silver in it. As a result, the mint was running short on coins for circulation. So, starting in 1965, the U.S. government made a bold decision. They removed silver completely from the quarter and replaced it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. By 1967, this transition was in full swing. The mint was still trying to stabilize coin production, and part of that effort involved removing something that had been part of coins for years, the mint mark. Yes, in both 1965, 1966, and 1967, quarters were intentionally struck without any mint mark at all. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. The idea was to discourage coin hoarding and limit demand for coins from specific mints. So officially, every 1967 Washington quarter should have no mint mark, but here's the twist. Over the years, reports have surfaced of 1967 quarters that do have mint marks, tiny letters tucked just to the right of Washington's ponytail, below the neck. These coins weren't supposed to exist. But they do. And the story behind them is one of the biggest mysteries in modern coin collecting. Some experts believe these mint-marked 1967 quarters were the result of experimental strikes, test coins made during transitional minting, possibly not meant for circulation but accidentally released. Others suspect they were struck using leftover dies from previous years. Whatever the case, the moment you spot a mint mark on a 1967 quarter, you are no longer dealing with an ordinary coin, you're holding a rarity. Now let's talk about what makes these quarters so incredibly valuable. It all comes down to three key things: rarity, condition, and mystery. First, rarity. Coins with mint marks from 1967 are practically unicorns. Officially, none should exist. So when one appears, it causes waves in the collector community. People are willing to pay top dollar just for the chance to own a coin that defies the rules. Second, condition. A coin from 1967 that's still in great shape, with clean fields, sharp details, and little to no circulation damage, is already special. But a rare 1967 quarter with a mint mark that's also in near perfect or uncirculated condition? That's numismatic gold. And finally, the mystery. The fact that no one knows exactly how or why these mint-marked coins came to be adds to their intrigue. Every collector loves a good story, and these coins deliver just that. But we're not done yet. There's another version of the 1967 Washington quarter that's equally thrilling: the transitional error. You see, during this period of change, a few coins may have been accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from earlier years. These errors are extremely rare and often go unnoticed because silver and copper-nickel coins look so similar. But with a scale and a little knowledge, you might just discover one. Regular 1967 quarters weigh about 5.67 grams. But a silver planchet quarter? That tips the scale closer to 6.25 grams. That small difference could mean the difference between a quarter worth 25 cents, and one worth thousands. And let's not forget about double die errors, off-center strikes, and weak strikes, all variations that can dramatically increase a coin's value. 1967 was a year of mass production, and with over 1.5 billion quarters struck that year, errors were bound to happen. But only a handful are considered valuable enough to make headlines. So now, here's the part you've been waiting for. If you happen to own one of these rare 1967 Washington quarters, one with a mint mark where there shouldn't be one, or struck on a silver planchet, or showing signs of a rare die error, its value could shock you, because among collectors and dealers who understand just how rare these coins are, one of these quarters has sold for as much as $71,000, yes. $71,000 for a coin that many people would overlook in their change jar. Today, we're talking about a specific coin that might be sitting quietly in someone's coin jar right now, the 1973 Washington quarter dollar with a mint mark. And let me tell you, this is not your average pocket change. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll discover why this unassuming 1973 quarter could be worth an eye-popping amount. And yes, we're talking real, life-changing money. Let's jump in. The 1970s were a defining decade in American history, marked by political scandals, economic shifts, and pop culture revolutions. While the world was watching Watergate unfold, disco lighting up the dance floor, and the gas crisis emptying wallets at the pump, something far more subtle was happening at the U.S. Mint. In 1973, the Washington quarter was being produced in high volumes. Over 350 million of them were struck, at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The Philadelphia coins had no mint mark, while the Denver coins proudly displayed a tiny D just to the right of George Washington's ponytail. Now, to most people, a mint mark might not seem like a big deal. But to coin collectors, it's everything. A mint mark tells you where a coin was made. And sometimes, it reveals so much more, including errors, variations, or clues to a coin's rarity. So why is the 1973 Washington quarter so special? Well, here's where it gets interesting. While most of the 1973 quarters were minted and released into everyday circulation, a very small number of coins from this year came out with unusual minting errors, die varieties, or unexpected characteristics that make them incredibly rare. Let's talk about one of the most important things collectors hunt for. In a 1973 quarter, mint errors, these can take many forms. One of the most valuable is the off-center strike. That's when the coin wasn't properly aligned in the press, causing the design to be off balance or even partially missing. Another type is the double die error, where the lettering or images appear slightly double due to a misaligned die during the minting process. These mistakes aren't just quirks, they're golden tickets for collectors. And then there are the wrong planchet errors. That's when a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, like a nickel or even a foreign coin. These mismatches are incredibly rare and often go undetected for years. Imagine holding a quarter that looks just a little lighter, or thinner. That could be a jackpot in disguise. Now let's talk about something even more mysterious: proof coins that somehow made it into circulation. Proof quarters are specially made for collectors, struck with extra care, polished dies, and mirror-like surfaces. They're never meant for pocket change. But in rare instances, a proof coin can accidentally slip into circulation. If you ever find a 1973 quarter with a mirror finish and extra sharp details, you could be looking at one of these rare escapees. But here's what really fuels the fire in the coin collecting world: the combination of a rare mint mark, unusual error, and pristine condition. For example, a 1973 quarter with a strong double die error, from the Denver Mint, and in uncirculated condition. That's a triple threat. Collectors go wild for coins that tick all three boxes: scarcity, flaw, and quality, and don't forget the role of condition. A coin's grade, ranging from good, G, all the way up to mint state, MS, can make a huge difference in value. A well-worn coin might only be worth face value. But the exact same coin, in uncirculated or proof-like condition? That's where things get exciting. So how do you know if you have one of these rare quarters? First, check for that mint mark. If there's a clear D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, take a closer look. Second, inspect the coin's details. Is the strike sharp? Are the letters crisp? Any signs of doubling, off-centering, or texture issues? Third, weigh it. A standard 1973 quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. Anything significantly heavier or lighter could point to a planchet error, and finally, consider getting it graded by a professional grading service like NGC or PCGS. That certification can turn a nice find into a certified treasure. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for. How much can a rare 1973 Washington quarter be worth, if you happen to have one with a significant minting error, or a proof coin that slipped into the wild, or one with a unique mint mark anomaly in mint condition? You're not just holding onto a piece of history. You're holding onto something truly valuable, because rare 1973 Washington quarters with verified errors and exceptional condition have sold for as much as $62,000, yes, $62,000 for a single coin that started out worth just 25 cents, incredible, right? Today's episode is going to blow your mind, especially if you've ever glanced at a 1974 Washington quarter and thought it was just pocket change, because believe it or not, a specific version of this 1974 quarter, especially the ones with rare mint marks and mysterious errors, could be worth an absolutely jaw-dropping amount of money. Yes, a coin you might have used to buy a soda could secretly be worth tens of thousands of dollars. So don't blink, because by the end of this video, we'll reveal how much one of these coins is worth, and it's a number that could change how you look at your change forever. Let's get into it. The Washington quarter has been a part of American currency since 1932. It was originally struck to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, but little did anyone know it would become one of the most widely collected coins in U.S. history. Fast forward to 1974, a turbulent time in American culture and politics. Gas lines, inflation, and Watergate were dominating the headlines. And while the country was dealing with crisis and change, the U.S. Mint was still producing coins for a growing nation. In that year, the Washington quarter was struck at two major facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. Here's where the details start to matter. The quarters made in Philadelphia in 1974 were struck without a mint mark. That's right, if you look at the front, the obverse, of your 1974 quarter and you don't see a letter, that means it came from the Philadelphia Mint. But if you spot a small D just to the right of Washington's ponytail, that coin was made in Denver. Now, both versions, with and without the mint mark, were produced in large numbers. So on the surface, there doesn't seem to be anything particularly special about a 1974 quarter, right? Wrong, because hidden among those millions of coins are incredibly rare errors, die varieties, and anomalies that have collectors across the world scrambling to get their hands on the right one. Let's talk about the rare traits that can make a 1974 Washington quarter so valuable. First up, double die obverse errors. These occur when the die that strikes the coin is misaligned just slightly during production, causing a faint but visible doubling of the design. In 1974, there were reports of double die errors on the obverse, where you can see slight duplication in the word Liberty, the motto, In God We Trust, or the date, 1974. These coins are highly sought after. Next, we have off-center strikes. These happen when the coin blank, called a planchet, is not properly aligned during minting. The result is a coin with part of its design missing or shifted off to one side. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin, especially if it still shows the full date and mint mark. Then there are wrong planchet errors, coins accidentally struck on planchets intended for another denomination. Imagine a quarter that was struck on a nickel planchet. It would be smaller, weigh less, and look a little off. These errors are extremely rare and worth serious money to collectors, and don't forget proof coins. Although most 1974 quarters were made for circulation, a small number of proof coins, with mirror-like surfaces and extra sharp details, were produced at the San Francisco Mint. These coins usually have an S mint mark and were meant for collector sets. But if one of these somehow made it into circulation and is discovered, it's considered a major find. Now here's where the real magic happens. Combining these elements. Let's say you find a 1974 quarter with a visible mint mark, maybe a D, or even a rare S, and it also has a double die error or an off-center strike. Better yet, it's in mint state condition, meaning it's never been circulated and shows no signs of wear. That's the coin every collector dreams about. That's the coin that changes everything. So how do you find one? Start by checking your quarters carefully. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the words, the numbers, and the mint mark. Compare the font shapes. Look for doubling. Check the weight. A standard 1974 quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. Anything significantly lighter or heavier could be an error. If you think you've got something unusual, don't clean it. Just protect it and get it professionally graded. Organizations like PCGS and NGC can verify whether your coin is authentic, identify any errors, and assign a grade, which will dramatically affect the coin's market value. Now let's get to the part you've been waiting for. So far, we've talked about rarity, mint marks, errors, and grading. All of that builds up to one question: what's a 1974 Washington quarter really worth if it has all the right traits? Well, here's the answer that shocks most people. If you happen to have a 1974 Washington quarter with a confirmed mint mark, an extremely rare mint error, and it's in pristine, uncirculated condition, then you might just be holding a coin valued at $68,000. That's right, $68,000. All from a single quarter. One small coin. One big reward. So, before you spend that next quarter or slide it into a vending machine, take a moment. That little coin could be a hidden treasure, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Maybe that someone is you. If you enjoyed this video and want more exciting stories about rare coins, surprising values, and hidden gems hiding in your pocket change, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a future episode. Until next time, happy collecting, and remember, every coin has a story. Some of them are just worth a whole lot more than you think.